The ship came out of hyperspace with a soft hum. Commander Kung Tai-ho stood near the viewing window and watched as the Valari throne world appeared before him. It was a planet of impossible beauty. Silver cities floated above purple oceans. Rings of light circled the world like jewelry around the neck of a queen. Ships moved between orbital stations like fireflies in the night. Tai-ho had seen many things in his 32 years of life. He had seen war. He had seen hunger. He had seen the old cities of Earth fall into dust and the new ones rise from the ashes. But he had never seen anything like this. The Valari Empire was old. They had traveled between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. Their technology was so advanced that it looked like magic. Their culture was built on thousands of years of tradition, and their pride was bigger than the space between galaxies. Earth had received an invitation from them. Some called it an invitation. Others called it a summons. The Valari were thinking about letting humanity join the Galactic Concord. This was an alliance of the 47 most advanced civilizations in the known galaxy. If Earth was rejected, humanity would be alone in a universe full of powers that could crush them like insects. If Earth was accepted, humanity would have friends, trade, protection, and a future. The politicians of Earth had argued for months about who to send. They were too important to risk themselves. The military generals were too aggressive. The scientists were too awkward. In the end, they chose Tai-ho. He was not a diplomat. He was a soldier and an engineer. When he was just 17 years old, he had rebuilt farms in the ruins of Old Seoul with his own hands. He had fought in wars and built machines that helped clean the air. He had walked through fire and come out the other side still standing. The politicians thought this made him strong. Tai-ho just thought it made him tired. His shuttle descended through the atmosphere. The capital city of the Valari grew larger in the window. Towers of crystal reached up toward the sky. Gardens floated in the air without any visible support. Everything was clean and perfect and beautiful in a cold way. The shuttle landed on a platform. It's made of something that looked like solid light. Tai-ho stepped out and was immediately surrounded by Valari attendants. They were tall, very tall, 8 feet at least, with silver skin that glowed with soft patterns of light. Their eyes were large and their features were sharp and elegant. They looked down at Tai-ho. He was not a short man by human standards, but next to them he felt like a child standing among adults. He could see it in their eyes. They thought he was small. They thought he was primitive. They thought he was nothing. One of them spoke. His voice was musical, but cold. "Follow us, human. The princess is waiting." Tai-ho nodded and followed. They walked through hallways made of crystal. Light moved through the walls like living things. Other Valari stopped to stare at Tai-ho as he passed. Some whispered to each other. Some smiled in ways that were not friendly. None of them looked impressed. Tai-ho kept his face calm. He had learned long ago that showing emotion to people who wanted to hurt you only gave them power. The hallway ended at a massive door. It was 3 times the height of a man and covered in symbols that glowed with inner light. The door opened without a sound, and Tai-ho stepped into the throne room. It was like walking into a cathedral made of light. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into brightness. Pillars of crystal rose on both sides. Hundreds of Valari nobles stood in rows, all of them dressed in clothes that shimmered and changed color as they moved. At the far end of the room was a throne made of something that looked like frozen fire, and on that throne sat a young woman, Princess. Lyra was 19 years old. By Valari standards, she was barely an adult. But her father, the Emperor, had given her the authority to conduct this evaluation. It was meant to be a test for her as much as it was a test for humanity. She was beautiful in the way that a blade is beautiful. Her skin was pale silver. Her hair was white and fell past her shoulders like water. Her eyes were violet and sharp and cold. She wore a gown that seemed to be made of captured starlight. She looked at Tai-ho, the way someone might look at a bug that had crawled into their home, so she said. Her voice was musical, but there was no warmth in it. "This is what Earth sends us. A single man? No servants. No guards. No gifts." She tilted her head. "How very simple." Tai-ho stopped at the proper distance from the throne. He bowed respectfully. Your Highness, I am Commander Kang Tai-ho of the United Earth Fleet. My world is honored by this opportunity to speak with the Valari Empire. Princess Lyra leaned forward in her throne. A small smile played on her lips. It was not a nice smile. Tell me, Commander, what does your species offer the Concord? Your people have only been traveling between stars for 200 years. That is nothing. That is the blink of an eye. She stood up from her throne and began to walk down the steps toward him. Her gown trailed behind her like liquid light. You have no special technology that we do not already have. You have no rare resources that we need. Your art is crude. Your music is noise. Your literature is the scribbling of children. Tai-ho remained silent. His face showed nothing. We have studied your history, the princess continued. She was circling him now, like a predator circling prey. Wars, so many wars. You killed each other over land, over religion, over the color of your skin. You poisoned your own planet. You almost destroyed yourselves completely. Twice. She stopped in front of him and looked up at his face. Even though she was tall for her age, he was still slightly taller than her. This seemed to annoy her. You breed quickly, she said, like insects. You spread across whatever world you touch and consume everything until nothing is left. You are messy. You are chaotic. You are violent. The nobles in the throne room whispered to each other. Some of them laughed softly. Princess Lyra smiled again. So tell me, Commander Kang Tai-ho of the United Earth Fleet, why should the Galactic Concord open its doors to a species like yours? What possible reason could we have to accept you among civilized peoples? Tai-ho looked at her. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply waited. The princess seemed pleased by his silence. She took it as proof that she was right, that he had no answer, that humanity had nothing to offer. She did not understand that Tai-ho was not silent because he had nothing to say. He was silent because he was still, deciding if anything he said would matter. Princess. Lyra enjoyed the silence. She thought it meant she had one. She thought the human had no words to defend his species. She thought he was standing there in shame. Realizing how small and worthless his people truly were, she did not know Kang Tai-ho at all. Mate, I met another human once, the princess said. She continued to circle him slowly, like a cat playing with a mouse. A woman named Park Somi. She came here 5 years ago as part of a trade discussion. She spoke very highly of humanity. She talked about your resilience, your creativity, your ability to survive against impossible odds. Lyra stopped and laughed. The sound was like breaking glass. Several nobles in the throne room laughed with her. I asked her a simple question, the princess continued. I asked her what humanity had created that was truly beautiful. Do you know what she said? She talked about music and paintings and stories, things that any child could make, things that the Valari had perfected 10,000 years ago. She moved closer to Tai-ho. Her violet eyes studied his face, looking for any crack in his calm expression. She found nothing. Your species is young, she said. That is not a crime, but you are also arrogant. You think you belong among the great civilizations of the galaxy, simply because you learned to build ships that can travel between stars. That is like a child thinking he is a man because he learned to walk. Tai-ho remained still. His hands stayed at his sides. His breathing was steady and slow. Princess Lyra felt a small spark of frustration. She had expected him to argue, to defend his people, to show emotion that she could mock. But this human just stood there like a statue made of stone. She decided to push harder. Let me tell you what I think of humanity, she said. Her voice grew sharper. I think you are a species of survivors. Not winners. Survivors. You survive not because you are strong, because you are too stupid to know when you should give up. You keep going not because you have hope, but because you lack the intelligence to see that your situation is hopeless. The throne room was completely silent now. Even the nobles had stopped whispering. Everyone was watching. You were like weeds, Princess Lyra said. Ugly, unwanted, but hard to kill. And like weeds you spread everywhere, choking out everything beautiful and worthy. She reached out and placed one finger against Taiho's chest, right over his heart. Her touch was light, but her intention was cruel. "Perhaps we should admit humanity to the Concord after all," she said. "But not as a member civilization. As a protected species. Do you know what that means, Commander?" Taiho did not respond. "There is a species called the Drival," the princess explained. "They live on a world called Nexus 7. Long ago, they were intelligent. They built cities and created art and dreamed of the stars. But their civilization collapsed. They could not survive on their own anymore. So we took them in. We built them a nice place to live. We feed them. We care for them. We watch over them like adults watching over children who cannot care for themselves." She pressed her finger harder against his chest. "That is what humanity could become," she said. "A protected species. Living in a nice little preserve, fed and cared for by your betters. You would never have to struggle again. You would never have to worry about survival. You would just exist, watched over by civilizations that are actually capable of taking care of themselves." She tilted her head and smiled. "Would you like that, Commander Kong? A nice preserve for your people?" The silence stretched out. Seconds passed, then more seconds. Finally, Taiho moved. He did not speak. He did not argue. He did not defend his people or explain why the princess was wrong. He simply turned around and walked toward the door. Princess Lyra blinked. For a moment, she did not understand what was happening. "Commander," she called out. Her voice was confused. "I did not give you permission to leave. Where do you think you are going?" Taiho did not answer. He did not slow down. He did not speed up. He just kept walking with the same steady, measured pace. "Commander, I am speaking to you." Nothing. No response. No reaction. Just his back moving farther and farther away. Princess Lyra felt her face grow hot. This was impossible. No one walked away from her. No one ignored her. She was the daughter of the Emperor. She was royalty. She had the power of the entire Valari Empire behind her, and this human was just leaving. "Guards!" she shouted. "Stop him." The crystalline guards at the doors moved to block Taiho's path. They were huge, even bigger than the attendants. Their weapons hummed with energy. They could kill him with a single shot. Taiho did not stop. He did not slow down. He kept walking straight toward them. Something in the way he moved made the guards hesitate. There was no fear in his body, no uncertainty. He walked like a man who had faced death many times before and was not impressed by it. The guards looked at each other. They looked at the princess. They did not know what to do. Taiho walked right past them. The doors opened. He stepped through, and then he was gone. The throne room exploded in whispers. Nobles turned to each other with wide eyes. Some looked shocked. Some looked amused. Some looked worried. No one knew what to say. Princess Lyra stood frozen in the middle of the room. Her hand was still extended, pointing at where Taiho had been standing. Her violet eyes were wide with a mixture of shock and growing fury. No one had ever done this to her. No one had ever walked away from her without permission. No one had ever ignored her commands. She had spent her entire life being obeyed, being feared, being respected, and this human, this insignificant creature from a primitive world, just turned his back on her and left without saying a single word. She did not understand. She could not understand, but deep in her heart, in a place she did not want to look at, she felt something she had never felt before. Doubt, because Kong Taiho had not left because he was afraid. He had not left because he was ashamed. He had not left because he had no answer to her words. He had left because he had decided that she was not worth answering, and that, more than anything else, made Princess Lyra feel very small. The whispers in the throne room grew louder. The nobles were talking about what had just happened. They were talking about the human who had walked away from the imperial princess. They were talking about what this might mean. Princess Lyra stood alone in the center of it all. Her perfect dress shimmering in the light. Her perfect face frozen in an expression she had never worn before. For the first time in her 19 years of life, Someone had made her feel like she did not matter, and she had no idea what to do about it. The news spread across the galaxy. It's like fire through dry grass. Within hours of Taiho's departure, every major civilization in the Galactic Concord had heard the story. The human representative had walked out of the Valari throne room. He had ignored the Imperial Princess. He had left without saying a single word. Some species laughed. They found it funny that the proud Valari had been embarrassed by a primitive human. Some species worried. They wondered what this meant for galactic politics. Some species were impressed. They had never seen anyone stand up to Valari arrogance before. Taiho did not care about any of this. He returned to his shuttle, ordered his pilot to take off, and jumped to hyperspace before the Valari could send ships to stop him. Then he sat alone in his quarters and stared at the wall for a very long time. He had not planned to walk away. He had gone to the Valari throne world with the intention of being patient and polite. He was supposed to smile and bow and say nice things even when they insulted him. That was what diplomats did. That was what Earth needed him to do. But there was a limit to what any man could accept, Princess. Lyra had not just insulted him. She had not just insulted humanity. She had tried to take away their dignity. She had suggested that humans should live like animals in a zoo, fed and cared for by their betters. She had looked at him like he was less than a person. Taiho had met people like her before. Powerful people who thought their power made them better than everyone else. People who believed that being born into privilege was the same as being worthy of respect. He had learned long ago that arguing with such people was pointless. They did not listen. They did not learn. They only enjoyed the sound of their own voices, so he had left. 3 days later, the ship arrived at the neutral space station called Harbinger 5. This was where Earth had its official embassy. Taiho sent a report to his superiors back on Earth. Then he waited. The response came quickly. Earth's government released a public statement. It was short and simple. Humanity withdraws its application to the Galactic Concord. We require no one's permission to exist. That was all. No anger, no threats, no long explanations. Just a simple statement of fact. The galaxy did not know what to think. On the Valari throne world, Emperor Vorin summoned his daughter to his private chambers. Lyra had never seen her father look so disappointed. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. "Do you understand what you have done?" he asked. Lyra stood before him, with her head held high. She refused to show weakness, even to her father. "I tested him, as you instructed. I pushed him to see how he would respond under pressure. That is standard procedure for evaluating new species." "And how did he respond?" Lyra paused. "He left. Yes, he left." The Emperor's voice was quiet, but heavy. Without arguing, without begging, without showing any emotion at all, he simply decided that you were not worth his time, and he walked away. "He was weak," Lyra said, though her voice was less certain now. "He could not defend his species with words." "No," Emperor Vorin replied. "He chose not to defend his species with words. There's a great difference between cannot and chose not to." He waved his hand, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. Information began to scroll across it. Text and images and video recordings. "This is Commander Kong Taiho's service record," the Emperor said. "I suggest you read it carefully." Lyra looked at the display. She saw a young boy standing in the ruins of a destroyed city. She saw a teenager working in fields of dirt, planting seeds by hand. She saw a young man in military uniform, leading soldiers into battle. She saw an engineer standing before a massive machine, explaining how it would clean the poison from Earth's air. "He was born during something the humans call the Resource Wars," the Emperor explained. "His family's city was destroyed when he was 6 years old. His parents died. He survived alone in the ruins for 2 years before anyone found him." Lyra felt something cold move through her chest. When he was 14, he joined something called the Reconstruction Corps. These were groups of volunteers who worked to rebuild Earth after the wars ended. He helped grow food. He helped build shelters. He worked 18 hours a day, every day, for 3 years. The images continued. Tai-ho was growing older. His face was becoming harder. His eyes were becoming deeper. When he was 19, his settlement was attacked by a group of raiders, men who survived by stealing from others. Tai-ho organized the defense. He had no military training. He had no weapons. He had only farming tools and the will to survive. He held the settlement for 3 days until help arrived. Lyra said nothing. She could not look away from the display. After that, he joined Earth's military. He rose through the ranks quickly. Not because of connections or family name, but because he was good at his job. He designed 3 of the terraforming systems that are currently healing Earth's atmosphere. He led the fleet that protected Earth's outer colonies during the border conflicts. He has received 17 commendations for bravery. The Emperor closed the display. The holographic images disappeared. This man has accomplished more in his 32 years of life than most Valari accomplish in 500 years, he said. And when you insulted him and his people, he did not argue. He did not beg. He did not try to explain why you were wrong, because he had no answer, Lyra whispered. But she did not believe her own words anymore, because he knew any answer would be wasted on you. The Emperor's voice was sharp now. The humans have a concept called dignity. It means knowing your own worth, regardless of what others think or say. Commander Kong has this dignity. And you, my daughter, insulted it in front of the entire court. Lyra felt her face grow hot. She wanted to argue. She wanted to defend herself. But she had nothing to say. The Concord is already talking. Emperor Vorin continued. The humans are a young species, yes. But they are not without friends. The Cathari helped them rebuild after their collapse. The Morvani have trade agreements with their outer colonies. Even the Silith have expressed interest. The Silith. Lyra was surprised. The Silith were famous for hating everyone. Their ambassador sent a message within an hour of Commander Kong's departure. He called the human refreshing. For a Silith, that is practically a declaration of love. The Emperor moved closer to his daughter. His eyes were still cold, but there was something else in them now. Something like sadness. You are young, he said. You have much to learn. I gave you this task because I thought you were ready. I was wrong. Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away. Valari royalty did not cry. What do I do now? She asked quietly. That is for you to decide, her father replied. But I suggest you think very carefully about what kind of ruler you want to become. One who looks down on others from a throne of arrogance? Or one who sees the worth in every being, regardless of their origin? He turned away from her. You are dismissed. Lyra walked out of her father's chambers. Her legs felt weak. Her mind was full of thoughts she did not want to think, images she did not want to see. A 6-year-old boy alone in the ruins of a dead city, a teenager planting seeds in poisoned soil, a young man standing against raiders with nothing but a farming tool in his hands, and a grown man walking away from her with steady, measured steps, his back straight and his head high. Princess Lyra had spent her entire life believing that she was better than everyone else. Now, for the first time, she was not so sure. 3 weeks passed. Princess Lyra did not sleep well during any of them. Every night, she lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling of her royal chambers. Every night, she thought about Commander Kong Tai-ho, about the way he had looked at her before he turned and walked away. There had been no anger in his eyes, no hatred, no fear. There had been nothing at all. As if she simply did not matter to him. That hurt more than any insult could have during those 3 weeks. Lyra did something she had never done before. She studied. Not the history of the Valari Empire or the politics of the Galactic Concord. She studied humanity. She read their literature. At first, she thought it would be simple and childish. But she found stories that made her feel things she had never felt before. Stories about love and loss and hope and despair. Stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Stories about the darkness inside the human heart and the light that could shine through it. She listened to their music. At first, she thought it was just noise. But slowly, she began to hear the patterns, the rhythm, The emotion? Human music was raw and messy and imperfect. But it was also alive in a way that Valari music was not. It sounded like people who knew their lives were short and wanted to fill every moment with feeling. She watched their art, their paintings and sculptures and films. She saw beauty in unexpected places. A photograph of an old woman's hands, wrinkled and worn from decades of work. A painting of a ruined city with a single flower growing through the concrete. A film about a father trying to protect his daughter during a war. Human art was not about perfection. It was about truth. About the messy, complicated, painful truth of what it meant to be alive. And she studied their history. Yes, it was bloody. Yes, they had done terrible things to each other. But they had also done wonderful things. They had built civilizations from nothing. They had created music and art and science and philosophy. They had faced extinction twice and refused to die. The Valari had never faced extinction. They had never known true desperation. They had never had to fight for their survival with everything they had. Perhaps, Lyra thought, that was why they looked down on those who had. On the 21st day, Lyra made a decision. She went to her father and told him that she wanted to travel to the human solar system. She wanted to apologize to Commander Kong in person. She wanted to learn more about humanity firsthand. Emperor Vorin looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Go, he said. Learn what you can. Perhaps you will become a better ruler because of it. Lyra took a small diplomatic ship with a minimal crew. She did not want to arrive with a fleet of warships. She did not want to look like she was trying to intimidate anyone. She wanted to come as close to an equal as a Valari princess could. The journey took several days. When her ship finally dropped out of hyperspace in the human solar system, Lyra went to the viewing window and looked out. She saw 8 planets orbiting a yellow star. She saw moons and asteroids and space stations. She saw ships moving between worlds, carrying people and goods and dreams. And she saw Earth. It was a small world, blue and green and white, wrapped in clouds like a gift waiting to be opened. From this distance, she could not see the scars of the resource wars or the collapse. She could only see beauty. This was the world that had nearly died. This was the world that had fought its way back from the edge of oblivion. This was the world that had produced Commander Kong Taiho. Lyra sent a message to the human authorities. She requested a meeting with Commander Kong. The response came quickly. Request denied. She sent another message, this time through official diplomatic channels. She explained that she was here on behalf of the Valari Empire to discuss potential relations between their peoples. Request denied. Lyra felt frustration building inside her. She was not used to being refused. She was not used to people saying no to her. But she also understood, in a way she would not have understood 3 weeks ago, that she had no right to demand anything. She had been the one who insulted them. She had been the one who called them weeds and insects and suggested they should live in a zoo. She had no right to expect them to welcome her with open arms, so she sent a third message. This time, it was personal. This time, she did not use her title or her authority. Commander Kang. I was wrong. I spoke from ignorance and arrogance. I insulted you and your people without understanding anything about you. I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not expect it. I only ask for the chance to understand, to learn, to see your world through your eyes, please. She sent the message and waited. Hours passed, then a full day, then 2 days. Lyra began to think that he would never respond, that he had decided she was not worth his time, just as he had decided in the throne room, that she would have to return to her father and admit that she had failed. Then, on the 3rd day, a message arrived. Dock at Station Mu-7. Come alone. Lyra felt her heart beat faster. She did not know if this was a good sign or a bad sign. She did not know what would happen when she met him again. But she knew that she had to try. She took a small shuttle and flew to Station Mu-7. It was a research facility that orbited Earth's moon. A simple, functional place with no decoration or beauty. Not the kind of place where diplomats usually met. Taiho had chosen this location on purpose, Lyra realized. He was not going to make this easy for her. He was not going to put on a show or pretend that everything was fine. He wanted her to see the real world. The world where people worked and struggled and survived. The shuttle docked. The airlock opened. Lyra took a deep breath and stepped aboard Station Mu-7. A human officer met her at the airlock. He was a young man with tired eyes and a polite but distant expression. "Your Highness," he said, "Commander Kong is waiting for you in Observation Deck 3. Follow me." They walked through the station. It was nothing like the crystal hallways of the Valari Palace. The walls were metal. The lights were simple. People in work clothes walked past, carrying tools and tablets and cups of something that smelled strange and bitter. No one bowed to her. No one even looked impressed. They just glanced at her silver skin and went back to their work. Lyra had never felt so ordinary in her entire life. They reached Observation Deck 3. The young officer opened the door and stepped aside. "He's inside," he said. Nothing more. Lyra walked through the door. The observation deck was a small room with a large window. Through the window, she could see Earth hanging in the darkness of space. The blue planet. The wounded world. The home of humanity. And standing by the window, looking down at his planet, was Commander Kong Tai-ho. He did not turn around when she entered. He did not greet her. He just stood there, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the world below. Lyra walked toward him. Her footsteps echoed in the quiet room. She stopped beside him. She looked at Earth. She did not know what to say. Finally, Tai-ho spoke. His voice was quiet and calm. The same voice she remembered from the throne room. "My grandmother used to tell me stories," he said. "About the old days, before the collapse, about cities that touched the sky and machines that could think. About all the wonderful things humanity had built." He paused. "And about how we lost it all. Because we were too proud, too greedy, too blind to see what we were doing to ourselves." Lyra listened. She did not interrupt. "We rebuilt," Tai-ho continued. "Not because we were better than our ancestors. Not because we learned some great lesson. We rebuilt because we had to. Because the children needed to eat. Because the water needed to be clean. Because the air needed to be breathable." He finally turned to look at her. His dark eyes met her violet ones. "That is what humanity is, Princess. We are not great. We are not special. We are just people who refuse to give up, even when everything tells us we should." Lyra wanted to look away. She could not. "Came here to apologize," Tai-ho said. It was not a question. A yes, Lyra whispered. "I came here to understand." Then, slowly, he nodded. "Then, let us begin." They stood together by the window, looking down at Earth. The planet turned slowly beneath them. Blue oceans and green continents passing in and out of view. Clouds swirled in patterns that looked almost like brushstrokes on a painting. Lyra did not know how long they stood there in silence. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. Time seemed to move differently in this small room, far from the politics and ceremonies of the galaxy. Finally, she spoke. "I studied your history. After you left, I spent weeks reading everything I could find about humanity." "And what did you learn?" Tai-ho asked. His voice was calm. Not angry, not cold. Just calm. "I learned that you almost died. Twice. I learned that you poisoned your own world and fought wars over things that seem meaningless now. I learned that your ancestors made terrible mistakes," as Tai-ho said simply. "We did. But I also learned that you survived. That you looked at the ruins of everything you had built and decided to build again. That you faced extinction and refused to accept it." Lyra paused. "I do not understand how. The Valari have never faced anything like that. We have never had to fight for our survival." Tai-ho turned away from the window. He walked to a small table where two chairs had been placed facing each other. He sat down in one and gestured for Lyra to take the other. She sat across from him. The chairs were simple. Metal and plastic. Nothing like the throne she was used to. "When I was 6 years old," Tai-ho said, My city was destroyed. A war that had been burning for years finally reached us. Bombs fell from the sky. Buildings collapsed. Fire spread everywhere. Lyra listened. She did not speak. My parents put me in a shelter under our house. They told me to stay there until they came back. They never came back. Taiho's voice did not change. He spoke as if he was describing something that had happened to someone else. I stayed in that shelter for 3 days. When I finally came out, there was nothing left. Just ruins and ash and bodies. How did you survive? Lyra whispered. Found water. I found food in the wreckage of houses and stores. I hid from the dangerous people who came to pick through the ruins like vultures. I learned to be invisible. To be patient. To never give up hope that someone would come. He looked at her with those dark, deep eyes. After 2 years, a rescue team finally found me. They were part of something called the Reconstruction Corps. Volunteers who traveled through the ruins looking for survivors. They took me to a settlement where other survivors lived. They gave me food and shelter and a purpose. A purpose? Lyra asked. Work, Taiho said. I was 8 years old, and they put me to work. Not because they were cruel, because there was too much to do and not enough hands to do it. We had to grow food. We had to build shelters. We had to purify water. Every person who could work had to work, or everyone would die. He leaned back in his chair. I did not mind. The work gave me something to focus on. Something besides the memories. Something besides the grief. When you are planting seeds in the dirt, you are not thinking about the family you lost. You are thinking about whether the seeds will grow. Lyra felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it as shame. I called your people insects, she said quietly. I said you should live in a zoo. I said terrible things without understanding anything. Yes, Taiho agreed. You did. I am sorry. The words felt small, inadequate, but they were all she had. Taiho studied her face. Do you know why I left your throne room without saying anything? Lyra shook her head. Because nothing I said would have changed your mind. You were not interested in the truth. You were interested in feeling superior. You wanted me to argue, so you could mock my arguments. You wanted me to beg so you could enjoy my humiliation. Anything I said would have been a waste of breath. Lyra felt her face grow hot. You were right. But you are different now, Taiho said. I can see it in your eyes. 3 weeks ago, you would not have come here. You would not have asked to understand. You would not have admitted that you were wrong. I have changed, Lyra agreed. I do not know if the change is good enough, but I have changed. Taiho nodded slowly. Then, for the first time since she had arrived, he smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight lifting of the corners of his mouth. But it was real. That's the most human thing about you, he said. What do you mean? Change? Growth? Looking at yourself and deciding to be better than you were yesterday? That is what humans do best. Not building ships or machines or cities. We change. We learn. We grow. Lyra thought about his words. About the boy in the ruins who became a soldier. About the soldier who became a leader. About the leader who walked away from an insult with dignity instead of anger. The Galactic Concord, she said. Would humanity reconsider joining? Taiho shook his head. No. The Concord requires its members to accept a certain way of thinking. A certain set of rules that we did not create and had no part in shaping. We will not beg for acceptance into a club that does not want us. Then what do you want? Partnership, Taiho said. Not with the Concord. With the Valari Empire directly, 2 civilizations meeting as equals. Learning from each other. Trading with each other. Growing together, Lyra considered this. That is not how things are usually done. No. But humanity has never been very good at doing things the usual way. Despite herself, Lyra laughed. It was a genuine sound, nothing like the cold, mocking laugh she had used in the throne room. My father would say you are being arrogant, maybe Taiho admitted. But there is a difference between arrogance and self-respect. Arrogance is looking down on others because you think you are better than them. Self-respect is knowing your own worth and refusing to let others take it away from you. He stood up and walked back to the window. Lyra followed him. Earth hung in the darkness below, beautiful and fragile and wounded and alive. That world almost died, Taiho said. My people almost died with it. And we are still here. Not because we are strong or smart or special, because we refused to give up. Because we looked at the impossible and said, we will try anyway, because we do not know how to quit. He turned to face her. That is what humanity offers the galaxy, princess. Not technology or resources or art. We offer the example of a species that fell to the very bottom and climbed back up. We offer hope. We offer proof that no matter how dark things become, there is always a chance for something better. Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not blink them away. For once, she did not care if she looked weak. I will tell my father what you have said, she promised. I will recommend that the Valari Empire accept your offer of partnership. And what about you? Taiho asked. What will you do? Lyra thought about the question. She thought about the throne that waited for her someday, about the power she would have, about the kind of ruler she wanted to become. I want to learn more, she said, about humanity, about your world, about the people who refuse to die. Would you teach me? Taiho looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. I will try, he said. But I warn you, humans are complicated. We do not always make sense. We are messy and emotional, and sometimes we do stupid things for no good reason. That sounds exhausting, Lyra said. It is, Taiho agreed. But it is also wonderful. Because every day you wake up not knowing what might happen. Every day there is the chance for something new, something unexpected, something beautiful. He turned back to the window one last time. That is the gift of mortality, he said quietly. We know our time is limited, so we try to fill every moment with meaning. We love harder. We dream bigger. We reach for things that seem impossible because we know we will not have forever to try. Lyra stood beside him, looking at the blue planet below. She thought about her own life, her centuries of existence stretching out before her. All that time, and what had she done with it? What had she learned? What had she created? Nothing? Nothing that mattered.